welcome to this week's Wellness Wednesday. And this week we have the third in our series of videos with Director Nutrition Kirsty Cullen. And in this video, we're talking about the Optimum Health Clinic approach to nutrition. So this is a good way of understanding our kind of overall way of thinking about and approaching nutrition to recovery from fatigue. Hi, Kirsty. So in this video, we're going to give a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the Optimum Health Clinic approach to nutrition. Now, obviously, this is an enormous topic, and this could easily be a kind of 5-day workshop in itself. But I think we wanted just to give a sense of some of the core kind of ingredients to, excuse the pun. So do you want to just start off by just what is the overall, what is the OHC approach to nutrition?
Yeah, so the way I always think about this is that ME/CFS is a complex, multi-system condition. It involves often quite a few key triggers, and it always involves sort of multiple systems within the body. So our work really has to reflect that. So that requires us to take a deeper dive into a client's biochemistry in a really organized and systematic way. And that organization and that approach will depend on their priorities and their symptoms, but we need to go through the body, the analogy being the jigsaw puzzle as always, but looking at each of those key functional systems and considering how we optimize the health of those symptoms. So we're going to be looking at things like mitochondrial function, we're going to be looking at genetic predispositions, liver function, the endocrine system, immune health, which is key, the gastrointestinal system, which is absolutely foundational. All of these elements will come under consideration within our approach. And that often means through moving through those systems, and the protocol and approach will adapt to recognize the work that we're doing. So I tend to think of it in two phases. You have a foundational phase, which is from that initial consultation, we're looking to take a snapshot of the diet and lay on top of that a solid base foundation in nutrition. So we're looking to get the right amount of macronutrients and micronutrients on the plate. We're going to look at the timing of meals. We're going to look at balancing blood sugar and blood glucose control. We're going to be looking at getting loads of antioxidants and vibrant colors back on the plate and moving away from beige dinner plates. We're going to be looking at a diet based in natural and nutrient-dense foods, and obviously removing things that I would consider to be deleterious to health or to be anti-nutrients. So things like refined sugars, processed foods, hydrogenated fats, alcohol, those types of things that are not helpful in terms of a recovery plate. Then on top of that, as we start to move forwards, we have more of a sort of a functional and specific focus. So what you put on your plate can directly impact on things like your inflammatory status, your immune activation, your epigenetic expression, the function of your liver and how you detoxify rubbish out of the system. Also, when it comes down to sort of anxiety, sleep patterns and insomnia, obviously mitochondrial function. Anything and everything that goes on that plate can impact in quite a direct way. So this is where nutritional therapy in its real sense kind of comes into play. And this is where you'll work in partnership with your nutritional therapist to peel back the biochemical layers to really gain an in-depth understanding of where your body's out of balance, what needs to be on the plate to help correct that, and potentially what needs to be in lifestyle and supplement protocols to kind of add to that support system.
So I think one way that helps bring this alive a bit more is take a couple of examples. And you mentioned inflammation, immune activity. So maybe say a little bit about how might we actually work with diet and supplements and lifestyle to address those.
Yeah, so I mean, common themes that we see, and obviously every case is very distinct, but common themes that I will see through cases that are specific to ME chronic fatigue will be low-grade chronic immune activation, or low-grade inflammation. And the two are not sort of distinct, the two are often linked. So if we take inflammation as sort of a starting point, there's a lot of research out there that shows that the inflammatory burden on the body has the potential to have a negative impact on mitochondrial function. Inflammation in the body can be triggered by numerous things, but you can start by looking at the diet and thinking about how the diet might be impacting on inflammation. So when we're looking at a food diary, we're going to be looking for those classic dietary inflammatory triggers. So things like an excessive intake of refined sugar, hydrogenated fats, alcohol, or maybe excessive exposure to pesticides or other chemicals, preservatives, colorings. On the flip side of that, what isn't going in? So is the diet low in antioxidants? Is the diet low in good fats? Is it low in fiber? And an imbalance in those different aspects has the potential to increase inflammation in the body. So we're going to look at a diet, highlight those areas, highlight where the deficiencies are, and make changes in our dietary recommendations around that with the overall aim of decreasing the inflammatory load on the body.
And it's sometimes hard for people to realize that just changing foods, for example, can impact something like inflammation, and that can actually impact the overall experience they're having in terms of a chronic condition. But I suppose it's often one of those things that the proof is in the pudding, and that's where sometimes the real motivation comes, when people start to see the impact of working in these kinds of ways.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were saying in sort of the previous video about managing expectations. I've made these dietary changes, but I'm not feeling any different. But then we can look at, a testing marker. So we could look at something like a fecal calprotectin level, which may show overt inflammation at the beginning of the process. But then as we've made the dietary changes and we've supported the gut and we've supported an anti-inflammatory diet, we can then retest calprotectin levels and see that that marker, has come sort of down through the ranks. So it's not always going to be a positive sort of immediate change in symptomology. Sometimes the proof is in the test results, which is why it's important, I think, to have that testing data on board sometimes, just as a confirmation of progress.
And as we said in the previous video, that sometimes what you're doing is you're dealing with this piece here, for example, to allow this piece over there to be impacted. But it's only when you get to this other piece that you actually start to see the change. And that's where being driven by data, as opposed to just, I read this in this book and it says that I should be doing this thing. That's where that data and that clinical experience, I think, is so important. Do you want to say a little bit also about working with immune provoking? We mentioned about the immune system side of it, immune provoking diet. Say a bit about that.
Yeah, so again, lots of research to suggest that low-grade chronic immune activation is one of sort of the perpetuating factors in chronic fatigue. And often, as you will know, we kind of see a key trigger as being a virus or a bacterial challenge. That's maybe the final straw that kind of, leads to an initial crash. Again, we can look to the diet. There obviously are always bacterial or viral elements for us to consider as part of the greater immune system, but we can look to the diet and consider things that might provoke the immune system or get it to sort of stand to attention, bearing in mind that that immune system is huge. It takes a lot of mitochondrial energy to drive it. So constantly asking the immune system to do something, even at a low level, is akin to kind of kicking a hole in the energy bucket, as I see it. So there are classic things. So you could talk about classic allergy foods. So, gluten for celiac patients, but things like peanuts, shellfish, citrus, those classic allergenic foods. But then there are also foods that people are not necessarily allergic to in the classic sense, but have an intolerance to. So things like gluten, dairy, histamine provoking foods. Again, things that the immune system is going to stand to attention and feel that it needs to do something about. If then we've got a history of viral or bacterial challenges, on the flip side of that, we want to think about, okay, the immune system is having to kind of fight with something in the system. How do we go about supporting that immune system through food? So what can we put on the plate that's rich in vitamin C, that's rich in zinc? where's our vitamin D level and how do we support that through sort of food and lifestyle and supplements. And then, there are other things, like there are some great fungi and mushrooms out there that are shown in research to support us in sort of an antiviral capacity. On top of that, you've got the immense topic of the gut. So 80% or thereabouts of our immune system is in the gut. So you can make a huge and positive impact to immune function by focusing on the landscape of the gut microbiome, the integrity of the gut wall. Those things can be absolutely essential to just kind of flipping that immune protection in a way that removes a burden from the body, and a burden essentially from mitochondrial function.
And obviously, this is just a couple of examples. There's so many other different ways that we might be working, but I think it's a helpful way to kind of bring to life the kind of approach that we have. And maybe just as a kind of final point, is the importance of the personalization of this to each person that we're working with. That it's not even just personalization of foods, but even down to supplements, to brands of supplements, to dosing of supplements, to timeline of introducing supplements, that how much of a kind of personalization there is to these pieces.
Yeah, this is it. And I think, there's an overarching message that you can give in terms of our sort of approach to food and nutrition, which is, I would kind of say, is covered by keeping it clean, keeping it simple, keeping it natural. I think it was Michael Pollan, from memory, might not be, I hope I've got that right, that kind of said that, if you pick up a food and there's a whole list of ingredients and you don't recognize them and you don't understand them, then really should we be eating those things? We shouldn't. So we want to keep approach simple. We're also very much thinking about our chronic fatigue patients, insofar as, most of our clients don't have the energy or, the time or the ability to go shopping and prepare foods. And so simplicity around these approaches is absolutely key. And so cooking in bulk, finding someone to delegate to, making sure that the cupboards are set up in a way that, facilitates good and easy sort of food choices is really important. Those foundations are essential. And then, as you've said, finding the individuality in each of those cases by working with your practitioner is kind of the next step. That's the next level. And it's that level that often makes then the fundamental and long-term change that's required.
Thank you, Kirsty. This is such a big topic. There's so much that we could say, but I think that's a really helpful introduction. And we'll, anyway, in future videos, be taking more of these ingredients and kind of broadening them out and going into them further. But for now, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Please do check out the previous 2 Wellness Wednesdays with Kirsty Cullen, where we talk about, is eating well enough? And also, should we follow a paleo, vegan, or whatever diet? We've got some more of these Wellness Wednesdays planned, where we're going to be talking with the nutrition team here at the Optimum Health Clinic about key principles of our approach. If you want to book a free 15-minute chat, you can do so at the optimumhealthclinic.com. That's a great way to find out more about whether our approach could be beneficial to you. Tomorrow is Thoughtful Thursday, and I am looking forward to announcing some very ambitious new plans for my daily vlog, and I'm going to get into quite a bit of detail about what I'm planning and how possibly you may be able to get involved in it. So I look forward to talking with you tomorrow on Thoughtful Thursday.